Well, I'm Kenny Lowry, and today we're just going to shoot a little quick video here and talk about choosing a fountain for the spot in your landscape. Probably the most in-depth questions we get from customers is picking the right size or scale, scaling the fountain to the surrounding landscape. That's the number one thing that we get asked about. And when people send us photos, we'll usually ask them to put like a soccer ball or a 5-gallon bucket or something in the picture just for us to be able to see the scale. So scale is important. When you watch our videos, we do have one of us is going to usually be in the video, and that is to help you to be able to see the size of the item. So I'm 5'11", 200 pounds, so when you see me near a boulder or one of the fountains or fire pits or something like that, it helps to give you an idea of the size of the item. So scale is very important, and I know from all the years of field experience I had, we used to go out and install these as well as not just make them, but we also install them. And scale is one of the most things that's hard to do if you're going to be doing this online. So what we'll kind of point out and shoot on this video here is try to help you answer some of those questions. Now, one of the things I can tell you is if you're going to do a fountain near a lot of vegetation, a lot of plant stock, things like that, the more plant stock that you have around it, the smaller it'll make the fountain look. So just keep that in mind when you're landscaping around. If you just put in a new fountain and you're just putting in low-growing plants and it looks like it's too big, that's going to change. And once the plants start to get bigger, the fountain itself will become smaller into the landscape. So I think you can kind of see that here. You can see this jar sitting here underneath that tree that's kind of overhanging it. If you can visualize this, that tree's not there and it's just sitting there all by itself, it's certainly going to really stand out a lot if that's the case. But with that tree behind it, it's got some height, it kind of nestles in there. Then the fountain itself becomes part of the overall landscape, and that's a couple of ways of looking at when you're choosing a fountain. The fountain is certainly a centerpiece in your garden, but the more other elements you bring into that landscape, the more the fountain becomes part of the overall story of the landscape. So it's not the only story going on in the landscape. So having other elements in there, other boulders, other plant stock, other things in there, a vining plant growing up on the side of something, things like that are gonna make the fountain have an overall theme, and it's also gonna be part of that theme rather than the only theme. The boulders back here, same thing. Boulders have a tendency to when you put plant stock around them, which you must have because boulders really need that plant stock, it kind of softens it. And when you're doing plant stock, make sure that you're doing something evergreen in there. You don't want the frost to come and kill all your annuals, and then it looks like a pile of rocks there. So mix in some evergreens and things like that when you're doing a boulderscape. Very important, so that way, 5 months out of the year during the wintertime, it doesn't look like a pile of rocks. It still has that softness that the plants bring into it. So scale, a lot of our fountains, you can kind of pick out your size. We have a multitude of sizes of boulders, jars, same thing. We have a multitude size, so you can kind of pick out the size that you want. And that applies to the fire pits as well. So you can see here with this plant's behind it. Can you imagine if the plants weren't there? It's going to look like it's kind of stacked up too tall. To me, it would look out of place. But you have tall plants around it, and this is a 5-stack, so you can actually make that kind of nestle too because of the plants that are around it. And if you didn't have those plants, it would, to me, my own personal opinion, it would look like it's sticking up too high. So plants are very important. I'm going to grab the camera now. We're just going to take a little walk through here and kind of talk about that. Now, it is still kind of mid-spring here, so the plants are just now coming out. So I'm going to point it out, and you have to kind of use your to visualize as I'm telling you here. So as I grab this camera, and we will look at what I'm talking about here. You can see there's a lot of elements going on in this particular landscape. There's a fire pit right there. There's a couple fire pits sitting there that aren't on. You got a jar fountain in there. So there's a lot of things going on. It's a big tree right there, and then some smaller trees kind of growing behind it. There's some larapi grass growing right there at the front of it, kind of softens it. And then there's actually that boulder over there is a propane tank, but those elements in there will draw the eye not only on the fountain but on those other elements too. So those are things you keep in mind as you're designing your landscape. Right now we'll kind of pan around here and we'll go for a little walk. And when you do pick this out, we tell customers a lot of time, you know, they're looking at a jar fountain, they're looking at a boulder fountain, and they want to know what the scale is going to be like. I always tell them, you know, get a trash can or something of similar size and stick there where the fountain's going to go to help you visualize. I've even had, I'd say, you know, have your somebody, another person, stand in there, you know, kind of crouch down to the size of what the fountain's going to be. Something to give you an idea of that scale. You can see here, this fountain here is kind of, it's on a little bit of a rise. We do have some hostas coming in there around it. You see there's other boulders in here, so when you look at this, it's not by itself. It's kind of there again. It's a taller boulder in the back of it. It's kind of nestling it in. It's not sticking out there all by itself. Same thing down here. You can see that boulder right there. It's kind of got some yucca plants there in behind it. It's got other boulders and things in the landscape, and you can see they're all of them have something else that it's got in the landscape with it. So that kind of helps to show the scale. So those are things you want to keep in mind. So just to kind of go over it, you know, the taller the plant, believe it or not, it'll make the fountain look smaller, even though when you first put it in there, it's going to look like it's too big. You put plants around, it's going to dwarf that fountain down. I hope this helps. It's the number one thing we get asked about, so I wanted to shoot a quick little video on that and just kind of to help you out as best we can on this end. If you have any questions about any of our products, of course, you can reach us, toll-free number there on the website. Also, you can send us an email over there. If you do send us photos and you're trying to get recommendations, you know, put something in that photo, something to give us an idea of scale on our end. So let us know if you have any questions.